To get us started, everything starts right here about something called money mindset. And we all have heard the word money mindset. Maybe we're here because of money mindset. But money mindset is something that I think can be confusing. It gets misinterpreted or it has missing pieces. So that's what I want to share today as you're getting into this mindset material is to maybe expand the way we think about mindset a little bit, expand it and drill it down. And mindset, everything money related becomes with mindset because mindset is this foundation and it's the internal system. It's like this internal operating system that creates all of our external financial realities. So that's how important money mindset is. It's this internal subconscious programming that's deeply embedded inside of us. And when I say subconscious, most of it is deeply subconscious. That means we are not aware of it. And it's these beliefs and feelings and thoughts and behaviors and reactions and triggers and all these things that are so automatic, part of our automatic nervous system, that we don't even realize how much control this subconscious patterning has over our lives. And so it's not until we become aware of it that we can actually start to change our mindset. But most importantly, to start off with is just understanding how important mindset is. Mindset's not everything, but it's certainly something that we need to address. So our mindset's programmed, and it's programmed. What I mean by programmed is just like when we speak English, for those of us that speak English as a first language, for example, and maybe the only language we speak, that was programmed. We didn't choose to speak English or Spanish or whatever first language that we have. Our parents spoke it in the household. Our grandparents spoke it. Everybody spoke it around us. And voila, we grew up speaking our primary language. And language is language. And so that's the language, the difference between English or Spanish or Portuguese or whatever the language is. But words are words, language is language. And so there's, let's say, the English language, but then when we speak English, we're also languaging everything else. And so what happens as children is our parents are talking about money, or they completely avoid the topic whatsoever. But our little listening ears are always listening. And what happens by the time that we're about 7, we're programmed. And the way I like to think about it, I think I learned this kind of metaphor from the late Bob Proctor. But the late Bob Proctor, who I studied when I was probably in my 30s, late 20s and early 30s, I listened to everything I could get my hands on from him around mindset, all types of mindset, but specifically money mindset, is that he would talk about that a thermostat. And so if you have a thermostat, you set it to 72 degrees and it bumps up against the 72 degrees and then it turns off. And then it'll bump up 72 degrees and then it turns off. But there's a limit there. That's where the thermostat will cut off. And that's what happens to our mindset. We're programmed to a certain thermostat, to a certain degree. And we can't go beyond that because that's where it's set. And that's why it's called mindset. So what we want to do is we want to look at the set and say, is 72 degrees okay with me? Or would I rather set it at a different temperature? And that's what we want to do with our mindset. With mindset, I'm going to talk about what I call the different parts of mindset. But before that, when we talk about this thing called money mindset, we've all heard it. There's a scarcity mindset and there's an abundance mindset. Bad marker. So scarcity and abundance. And I think every one of us have heard this before. And it's one part of this. But again, when I listen to mindset being talked about out there in the money mindset zeitgeist, is that it's just that everything and to do with money mindset is the difference between scarcity and abundance. And it's an important part, but not the only part. But let's break this part down. Scarcity is that what it is this fundamental money belief that money's scarce. It's limited. It's not available to me. There's never enough. And it's just a way, it's kind of this subconscious programming that everything about money is scarcity, that we're always in a limited supply. We never have enough. We can't ever figure this thing out. And it becomes this embedded patterning that then affects all of our money decisions and how we relate to money and how we talk about money, how we treat money, everything else downstream. And it's programmed from a kid based on what we heard as a child, for example, started this type of programming. Almost everyone starts with the scarcity mindset because money wasn't a positive conversation in the household. So I don't know, let's just say, make up a number and say 90% of all of us, depending, it didn't matter if we grew up with little money like I did or a lot of money, still the way money was spoken in the household caused the scarcity. Like there's never enough. We can't afford it. Who are you to ask for more money? Why do you think I'm made of money? Like we heard all of these words from our parents that deeply shaped these feelings, but it caused kind of this fundamental mindset that there's just never enough. And as kids, like we don't have, our prefrontal cortex isn't completely grown together, whatever happens here. We just absorb these things and they become truths. They just become the way we see the world based on what our parents taught us, showed us, talked about. And this is where most people are. Now, what we want to do is when we learn that there's this difference between scarcity and abundance, we want to choose then to move over to this other side. And if 90% of us start here, that means that there's very few that are already starting with some type of abundant type mentality when it comes to money. So it's sometimes the reason why I say this is because sometimes we just think like, hey, I'm programmed this way and I can't change, and everybody else, they just have that abundance thing over there. And it's like, no, we almost all start here. And when we get to abundance, abundance is obviously the other side of the pendulum. And it's just this fundamental belief that money is an unlimited resource. There's plenty of money. If I want more, I can go find more or make more, earn more, create more. And it's a very different versus just fighting for the little bit that's over here. It's going out and creating opportunities. So very different mindsets. And we have to, if we're really going to create financial abundance, create this wealth, create plenty, get to a place where we just feel like there's enough, then we have to start adopting this abundance mindset. Scarcity mindset, it says things like, hey, if somebody else has money, if they have money, there's less for me. That means, again, money's in a limited supply. It causes a lot of competition over money, a lot of fighting for money. It can cause stealing over money. It's a big trap. And it's, like I said, this deeply embedded belief system that we play out is true. It keeps a tap on how much money we can earn. It keeps a tap on what type of opportunities we may pursue. So we want to start rewiring and start listening to our language and kind of the way we think and think out loud to start moving into these belief structures that there's plenty for me. I can co-create it. I'm a creator. I can go create money. I can produce opportunities. It doesn't matter if there's a billionaire across the street that has nothing to do with me. It doesn't mean that I can't have something. I can't create my own future situation of what I want. And not comparing ourselves because we're abundant as we are, for example. And the abundance mentality really creates this desire to invest in ourselves. So even like making this type of financial investment you've made with me is really hard because you're saying, I can't afford it. I shouldn't do it. Where's the money going to come from? Money doesn't grow on trees. But somehow you fought this urgency to move over here to create a different, the abundance mindset says, I can learn, I can grow. I trust myself to learn new things and create different situations. And I'm so excited and so curious to see what's ahead. So very different, frames through which we see the world. There's also, let's say, for example, a difference between these two is, let's say an unexpected bill comes up. And with the scarcity mindset, it'd be like, here we go again. I can't afford it. It always happens to me. Like, it never works out. Just right when I feel like I'm going to get ahead, there it goes. I get the bill I wasn't expected. And then it just defeating. It causes stress. It causes burnout. It causes fear. It just causes complacency. Like, why even try? But an abundance mindset with that same situation would say something like, Oh man, that's a bill that I didn't expect. Yeah, that hurts a little bit right now, but you know what? I'm creative. I can figure out how to pay it. Maybe there's different opportunities. Maybe something I can learn from it, and I can figure it out. I will figure it out. So it's just the approach was something, the totally different approach based on something as simple as a bill coming in. Another example is that's kind of has to do with us. Let's say a bill coming in. Another example, it could be something like other people. And it could be like our neighbors or just someone on social media or whoever it is, and be like, man, that's not fair. They're so lucky. Why did they get all the breaks? Why did they get the money? Why, I think I'm a better person than they are. Why did they drive that car? So it's this comparison by putting the other person down in a way that they have more. Maybe they just got lucky. And then an abundance mindset would be the opposite, would be say something like, man, if others have been able to achieve this, I can achieve it too. And wow, what a great example of somebody who started with nothing and created these great things. Like I started with nothing, I could do that too. So it's looking at people that do better than we are and looking at it as an opportunity, as something that is an example that we can replicate. And it's really interesting because on my YouTube channel, for example, you don't put yourself out on social media if you don't want to get the haters, but most of my videos get pretty positive responses. But every once in a while, I'll get a comment on my YouTube that says, well, you can say that, Krisstina, because, or they'll do it in third person, actually. They'll do it something like, oh, I'm sure she grew up with money. That's easy for her to say. She probably has rich parents. And they're kind of projecting this thing. And it's funny because Brad, he monitors a lot of the YouTube stuff and he'll actually get upset. He'll want to respond like, don't you know that she started a trailer home and she's worked her ass off and all these things. And he gets defensive on my behalf. And it's just funny. It's because we're programmed with the scarcity mindset that we have to go make others look bad, feel bad to make ourselves feel better. But all of this sits in the scarcity mindset versus saying, hey, let me learn more about this Krisstina chick and see, wow, she grew up in a trailer home, and wow, she grew up with alcoholic parents, and oh my God, she was abandoned by her parents, and oh my God, all these things, and she created these things. Wow, she could do it. Maybe I could do it too. So scarcity and abundance. So we really want to start catching ourselves where these scarce type thoughts come into our lives that keep us from making maybe big, bold decisions. And the most abundant people I know invest in themselves all the time. So again, it takes movement towards abundance to make this type of investment. So again, congratulations. The second thing underneath kind of money mindset in general is something that I call a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And a fixed mindset is just that. It's this belief that my intellect, my abilities, my skills, my mindset, my opportunities, they're all fixed. And it's fixed the way it is. I have little to no control over my life. I'm kind of a victim of circumstance. And that's just the way it is. And I'm going to have an attitude about it. So that's more of a fixed mindset. There's a book, I think it's called Fixed versus Growth Mindset by a psychologist. Her name is Carol Dweck. A great book, by the way, if you guys want to read that she goes into a lot of detail from a psychological perspective. And I know so many people that wrote the book that they're like, oh my God, I didn't even know I was so fixed and rigid and stuck in my ways. And she said, we do, especially the older we get, stuck, rigid, fixed in our ways. That won't work for me. I don't have the money. Just a repeat of the same old song and dance over and over and over again. Versus what Carol talks about in the growth mindset means it's a different belief structure. Just like this is the opposite, where it's like, if it's to be, it's up to me. Like if other people can, I can too. It doesn't matter what my intellect is. I can grow, I can learn, I can gain new skills. I have control over my future. I can create new opportunities. So it's this I can type of attitude, and to always be learning and growing. But it's a belief that I'm not rigid, I'm not fixed. And we have to, based on how we grew up, this could be a lot of work. Like both of these have been a lot of work, like early on in my life, because I grew up with so little. And I did grow up in poverty, for example. So I started with the scarcity mindset, heard all the things that you hear growing up in that type of situation. And then, but just the growth mindset was that I grew up in a teeny tiny town, rural town, I think my graduating class was 50 people in high school or something. And it's just a terrible education. I got to college. I felt so stupid and ignorant because I just didn't know some of the most basic things. And it took a long time. I just kind of thought I was dumb for the longest time. I just didn't think that I was as smart or can do as well as others around me, because I created this belief that based on where I grew up in my education system, that that's the best I could do. But then just kind of getting over that and just learning and investing in myself and learning and investing in myself and learning and investing in myself where it's never stopped. It's just amazing. Like now it's like my own internal story is I have a different type of smarts. Probably I'm never gonna win a game on what's that game show where the Jeopardy game show where it's all the questions of like this Jeopardy. Thank you. So I'm never going to win at Jeopardy. I can't even remember the name of Jeopardy. So I think that lets it right there. But it's different kind of smarts. We can make the best of our smarts and our individuality to constantly be growing and creating and becoming. So overall, just money mindset, we want to look at. And so an exercise during this week is to start thinking am I kind of stuck in the scarce mindset? And what do I need to do to be able to start moving to this more abundance? What are some things I'll start saying to myself? And same thing, where am I fixed? What are these like rigid beliefs where it's really fixed, where I get caught in these stories about myself that just aren't true? And where can I grow? What are these things where I can just kind of let go of some of that old stuff? And I mention this because as you go through these 12 weeks, you're going to be bumping up against this. You're probably going to be bumping up against a lot of scarcity. You're going to be bumping up against a lot of fixed mindset. And that's okay. I want this to start surfacing. And it might, like I said last week, it might feel different. You might feel different things. But we just want to let these things come out, address them, look at them, and rewrite them. We want to start reprogramming and moving from scarcity fixed over to abundance and growth mindset. All right, so that's just kind of mindset at the 50,000. Good.